Karen had that incredible voice that everybody said, oh yeah. What we used to call instant radio. You know, when the radio went on and you heard Karen Carpenter's voice, it took about 3 seconds and you knew who it was. That's amazing. An incredible instrument. Wonderfully controlled.
And she sang simple, and I love that. I mean, she sang the song. There was not a lot of tricks. It's something that I've grown up to sort of emulate, that style of trying to just deliver the song. And Karen was one of the masters of it.
Karen also played drums in the band. She still loved the instrument she had discovered in high school.
When I took up the drums, both the drums and the voice started to come together.
At the same time. But did folks like to say, girl drummer? Why,
Yeah.
Karen, why do you want to do that?
Well, everybody kind of looked at me funny, but I didn't really care.
I'm watching her play drums when no one was around and she and Richard would be playing or they'd be rehearsing. It was a joy to behold.
As her popularity as a singer grew, so did the pressure for her to take the normal position of a lead singer, center stage. So she agreed to a compromise. The major ballads she would sing out front, the rest she would perform at the drums.
It wasn't about how she sounded. She was carrying the vocals just fine. And she was playing the drums just fine. The thing is, you had this phenomenal singer, the back part of the stage behind all this stuff, right? And people wanted to see the singer.
Within a few short years, Karen and Richard Carpenter had gone from suburban kids with a dream to international pop stars. By 1973, they were A&M's top-selling group. To quote one of their hits, the Carpenters were now on top of the world. Yet before the end of the 70s, it would all begin to fall apart. '69, the year the Carpenters signed with A&M, was the year of the legendary Woodstock Festival. It was a time of revolution in the streets and in the world of popular music. Suddenly, what you listened to defined which side you were on, and the phrase generation gap was on every exasperated parent's lips.
Anti-establishment was definitely the word in rock and roll in the late 60s, and the Carpenters were the complete opposite. They were the establishment. It's hard to imagine anything more of the opposite of the whole kind of Woodstock culture aesthetic than the Carpenters.
So the Carpenters were seen by the rock press as a brother and sister team who sang syrupy love songs. They were stereotyped as milk-loving mom and apple pie squares.
Well, I just think that the pressure of the perfect siblings, you know, squeaky clean, probably never said a curse word in their lives. I mean, I felt like they were imprisoned in a way.
It was hard for the siblings to deal with the personal criticisms of their hair and clothes, but what really made them angry was the unthinking dismissal of their music.
And I kind of expected a fair shake when it came to the Carpenters, because whether you like them or you don't, no one can really say that we weren't good. You just can't. And some people said we weren't good, and say I said they're ignoramuses.
The Carpenters further cemented their reputation as the Pat Boone and Doris Day of their generation when they accepted President Nixon's invitation to play at the White House.
We think that tonight, having the Carpenters, one of America's finest young group in America, entertain us is most appropriate. The Carpenters, ladies and gentlemen.
Lonely just begun to live.
But despite the criticism of the hip rock press, the Carpenters' records flew out of the stores, and their concerts sold out around the world.
Somehow or another, every one of their albums sold so many millions of copies to who we don't know. Nobody will admit they ever bought one, but miraculously, thank God, they were sold.
By this time, jets and first-class suites had replaced the Ryder trucks and college dorm rooms. What hadn't changed was Richard and Karen striving to make each performance an exact recreation of the recorded version. Improvisations by musicians in the band were not only frowned upon, they were forbidden.
Their demand for perfection and for being perfect in your show and in playing everything would seem unfair, except for the fact that they never made a mistake. They were always perfect in every way. So they was kind of like, hey, we can do it. We're working hard doing interviews and everything else, so you got to be there too. And so you did. And we took great pride on achieving perfection every night.
In an interview in the early 70s, Karen talked about their drive for perfection.
We spend an awful lot of time trying to achieve perfection as close as we can come. And that's not that easy, you know. It's a full-time job. It's the foremost thing in both of our minds at all times.
Band members were proud of the music they played with the Carpenters, and they genuinely liked and respected Karen and Richard. Still, they couldn't help but see the flip side of the duo's smiling personas. Any band member who missed a note or ventured outside the proscribed arrangement would receive a cold stare and a verbal lashing after the show from Karen.
That takes its toll. It's very stressful when there's so much scrutiny on every note, and that becomes the end-all and be-all of everything, is not making a mistake. Instead of maybe just going out and having fun and enjoying it a little bit more, stopping and smelling the roses.
Of course, there were also some good times on the road, and Karen was often at the center of these.
She was the only girl there, but unlike most other girls who would miss that companionship, she was the first one who would be yelling, "Who's going bowling tonight?"
For many people, the thought of spending days on end with a sibling is not appealing. Yet Karen and Richard's relationship managed to survive countless hours of touring and recording. They were bound not only by family ties, but by musical ones as well.
Once in a while, Karen and Richard would be out at the piano, and he'd be either showing her a part or showing her a new song or something. And it wasn't that they said anything. There was a moment between the two of them that was private to them, where they were almost basking in something. I mean, they knew it was right, they knew it fit, they knew that what they just did sounded great.
Though Richard and Karen had become international stars, they were not as successful in their love lives. A relentless work schedule made relationships difficult. Richard dated members of the Carpenter entourage, but both Agnes Carpenter and Karen were claustrophobically overprotective of Richard. They made it clear that they disapproved of his liaisons, and Richard would eventually, reluctantly, end each of them. Though Karen occasionally dated, her relationships never lasted. She was both too busy with her music and too afraid of ending up with a gold digger. In 1974, Karen decided that she needed to lose weight. She had always disliked her hourglass figure, and now began what everyone considered normal dieting. Karen got down to a weight that seemed normal to those around her. The problem was, she didn't stop dieting once she got there. Concerned, Richard spoke to his sister, who told him not to be alarmed. She just wanted to get down to 105 pounds. But 105 pounds came and went, and Karen kept dieting. By 1975, the normally energetic singer had to rest between shows in Las Vegas.
But then it just kept going down, down, down. And, of course, if in fact she had anorexia nervosa, we didn't know it at the time. It's just all of us around her noticed that the pounds were just falling off.
Then something even more uncharacteristic happened. Karen, who never missed a day of work, became too weak to perform. The Carpenters had to cancel their sold-out appearances in Britain and Japan. While Richard flew overseas to speak to fans and promoters, Karen rested at home in Downey under the watchful eye of her mother. When her weight climbed back to 104 pounds, everyone thought the worst was over. But for Karen and the Carpenters, the worst had only just begun.